After this module, the students will be able to understand the needs of the people's involvement in program planning. The students will be able to organize the planning committee for people's participation in preparing the extension programs. The students will be able to explain the structural form of the planning committee and its responsibilities in execution of the extension programs. And the students will also be able to organize the planning committee for the active participation of the local people in the extension programs. In rural development programs, allowing and encouraging the people's participation is an integral part of our philosophy of life, our culture and democratic traditions. It is essential to the success of such programs. The purpose is to create an atmosphere, opportunities and motivation to develop their inherent potentials, whereby they become partners in their future and improve their standard of living. In the final analysis, the people's involvement should lead to a situation wherein people operate and the government cooperates. The logic underlying is that rural people want a better life, and that once the superiority of improved practices and ways of doing things is demonstrated, the rural people will accept them. It is well known that development cannot be forced upon unresponsive and reluctant people. People's participation in rural development programs is always like to raise several problems. The process of decision making may have to be slow and moderate, but as one rural leader remarked, if democracy cannot afford it, what is the use of it? It was said by Sandhu 1965. People's participation may be defined as the process of giving priorities to local people's perspective in identifying and analyzing their problems and opportunities and improving the situation through their self-mobilization. The focus is on the insiders, that are local people's perspective, rather than on outsiders, that are change agents or development administrators' perspective. The people's participation is contrary to I know what they require type of bureaucratic approach. Many development interventions have been seen to create a sort of dependency syndrome. With active involvement of the local people, it is possible not only to break the mentality of dependency, but also to increase their awareness, self-confidence and control of the development process. The different people in different contexts use the term people's participation to connote the different things. By people, it may mean the target population, the beneficiaries, and the men and women, the old and young, the formal and informal leaders, the people of different segments and strata of the community, depending upon the mandate of the specific development programs and activities. People's participation in extension, in a broader sense, means the involvement of people in the program of directed social change initiated by the development agencies by way of analyzing the situations, deciding on the problems to be tackled, fixing up of priorities, drawing plans of action, taking initiatives in implementing the activities of the project as partners through contributing their ideas, materials, resources, labor and time, etc. And finally, evaluating the results thus accrued to themselves. If peoples are to become partners in their own future, they have to be actively involved in program planning. This concept has been accepted by the extension educators and is being practiced throughout the world. The basic premises underlying the concept of involving people in program planning includes the involvement of representatives lay people in the planning process will speed up the process of educational change among people. The involvement of representatives lay people will result in better decisions compared to those made by the professional staff alone. And thirdly, the involvement of individuals in planning activities is a beneficial learning experience. Brunner and his associates emphasized the significance of involving people in the planning. They had said that there is practically unanimous agreement in all the studies that the maximum involvement of potential and actual constituents in program building produces the best results. However, there are experts who are critical of involving the people in program planning activities. Planning for the people here refers to extension program planning without the active participation of the people for whom it has to be implemented. There can be two ways of planning without the involvement of the people or the audience, as we generally call them in extension terminology. First, the program might be planned at the national or state or regional level and passed on through the extension workers to be imposed on the people for execution. Thus, the people are involved at the execution stage only. The second possibility is that the extension agency at the local level, with its technical knowledge and training in extension philosophy and methods, may think that it is able to visualize all rural people and their needs and problems and thus prepare a program for its area. Once the program is chalked out, the main emphasis would be to motivate people to adopt and implement it. In both these types of approaches to planning for the people, many of the people's needs and interests would be overlooked. We have defined that an extension program is a set of clearly defined, consciously conceived objectives or ends derived from an adequate analysis of a situation which are to be achieved through extension teaching activity. The extension programs conceived about would not weigh with this statement. An analysis of a situation is not done, and so the program is not based on a real diagnostic analysis of people's needs at once. Whatsoever has been presumed may be just symptomatic treatment, which all doctors know gives no relief. The important factors related to the actual situation, opinions and experiences would be neglected. As a result, the interest and belief of the people in programs would not be strong enough to motivate them to take the responsibility of execution. In many situations, it tends to manipulate the ideas and the people to secure the end of a professional elite. And as we all know, the rural development in democratic countries is not a matter only of plans and statistical targets and budgets, technology, methods, materials aids, and professional staff or agencies and organizations to administer them. Rather, it is an effective use of these mechanisms as educational means for changing the mind and actions of the people in such a ways that they help themselves attain economical and social improvement. Hence, the process is one of working with the people and not for them, of helping the people become self-reliant, not dependent on others, of making people the central actors in the drama and not stage hands or spectators. Furthermore, an extension programs will lay emphasis on educational and not on service and planning for the people would be nothing short of service, while planning with the people would be nothing but educating them. It is well known that education makes people more self-reliant and while service makes them dependent on others. No matter how good a plan is, if the people for whom it is made fail to feel it belongs to them, it will not work successfully. Unless an activity is planned with them, the people in free choice societies will not long participate in them. One might say that rural people usually do not see far enough ahead to agree on future projects for the improvement of their situation. This may be true in general, but they should always be prepared through discussions to see the necessary and importance for planning and adopting such programs. Then we may depend on their cooperation and participation in the implementation of the work. Of course, with the proper understanding of the concept and necessity of planning with the people, and will increase the professional competency, and together with overcoming some of the other hurdles in the way, greater stress is now being given to planning with the people. The experiences of several countries advanced in extension work has proven that the extension program should start from the local level. The information on local conditions and other factors related to people's attitude, manner of living, the financial situation, and human power facilities, and this should be taken into consideration in planning an extension program. The extension worker should acquaint himself with the general agricultural, social, and economical conditions of his area. He needs to do a job analysis in cooperation with the groups of progressive farmers, of major farm enterprises, and various important rural activities in order to know the standard practices and to select the important and crucial problems. In the light of this, the program should then be discussed with concerned people to secure their interest and to assure their maximum participation in the execution of the work. To achieve the program's objectives, that is, increase in income, development of leadership among the farmer people, building self-reliance and decision-making, the extension worker should take the steps just mentioned in cooperation with the farmers and the rural leaders. This is the basic foundation for all the fruitful achievement that an extension worker hopes to attain in working with the rural people. The participation of the people with the extension worker in studying the local conditions help him to know exactly what their problems are, felt needs of the majority, the causes of the problems, and other problems or needs that the people do not recognize and feel clearly, and what has been done by individuals or groups to improve the present situation. The extension agent, by working closely with the people of his area, the sharing opinions and experiences, will have a better understanding of their ability and capacity to accept the new ideas and practices. In the ultimate sense, the whole purpose and process of people's participation in the context of directed social change is human resource development. Means the development of human and inner material resources with the stimulus and support external to the community. The process of people's participation in rural development involves the transfer of administrative and financial powers from have-nots and sharing of technical and legal information with the local people whose participation is short. Drawing upon the experiences, some of the rationale of participatory extension vice rural development can be identified as follows. Reduction in development cost to the government and other development agencies. Enhancing the capacity of the rural communities to deal with their problems. The correction of mistakes made by project authority in designing and implementing the programs of action. Increase in the level of political awareness of the people, reaching the program's benefits to all the legitimate claimants, and decrease in perpetual dependency of the people on government and thereby making the program self-sustaining and local peoples self-reliant, gaining access to and control of resources, easier mobilization of the local resources, and the gradual empowerment of socially and economically disadvantaged people in the community. With regard to the rural development, the people's participation includes people's involvement in decision-making processes, in implementing the programs, their sharing in the benefits of development programs, and their involvement in efforts to evaluate such programs. And it is said by the Cohen and Afop 1977. The community participation is an active process by which the beneficiaries or client groups influence the direction and execution of a development program with a view of enhancing their well-being in terms of income, personal growth, self-reliance, or other values they cherish, by Paul 1987. According to World Bank 1994, participation is a process through which the stakeholders influence and share control over the development initiatives and the decisions and resources which affects them. We can interpret the people's participation in two broad and distinct areas of development. People's participation as a means. Participation is seen as a process whereby the local people cooperate or collaborate with externally introduced development programs. In this way, the participation becomes the means whereby such initiatives can be more effectively implemented. The people's participation is sponsored by an external agency, and it is seen as a technique to support the progress of the program. People's participation as an end. The people's participation is seen as a goal in itself. This goal can be expressed as the empowering of people in terms of their acquiring the skills, knowledge, and experience to take greater responsibility for their development. People's poverty can often be explained in terms of their exclusion and lack of access to and control of the resources which they need to sustain and improve their lives. Participation is an instrument of change, and it can help to break that exclusion and to provide poor people with the basis for their more direct involvement in the development initiatives. The critical issue to bear in mind is that people's participation in development is concerned with the two things. Firstly, the structural relationships and the importance of development, people's capacities and skills to negotiate and to seek the resources and changes which they require in order to improve their lives. And secondly, the methods and techniques whereby the local people can be brought to play a part and to develop a stake in development programs and projects. Another way of distinguish between different forms of participation is to think in terms of levels or the degree of participation. These can be understood along a continuum and can range from participation as essentially an act of manipulation to a degree of participation in which the stakeholders become partners in development initiative and begin to assume the full responsibility for its management. Manipulation. The lower range applies to situations of non-participation, where the participation is contrived as the opportunity to indoctrine. Information. When the stakeholders are informed about the rights and options, and the first important step towards genuine participation takes place. The main drawback at this stage as that emphasis is placed on one-way communication with neither channel for feedback nor power for negotiation. Consultation. This level entails the two-way communication where the stakeholders have the opportunity to express suggestions and concerns, but no assurance that their input will be used at all or as they intended. Therefore, it could be said that at this level, the stakeholders are participating in participation. The most frequent approach to consultation is chaired meeting where stakeholders do not contribute to the agenda and public hearings and surveys. The consensus building. Here stakeholders are interacts in order to understand each other and arrive at negotiated positions which are tolerable to the entire group. A common drawback is that the vulnerable individuals and groups tend to remain silent or passively acquiesce. The decision making. When the consensus is acted upon through collective decisions, this marks the initiation of shared responsibilities for outcomes that may result. Negotiations at this stage reflect the different degrees of leverage exercised by the individuals and the groups. The risk sharing. This level builds upon the preceding one but expands beyond decisions to encompass the effects of their results. A mix of beneficial, harmful and natural consequences. Things being constantly in flux, there is always the element of risk where even the best intended decisions might yield the least desired results, and hence the accountability is fundamental at this level, especially when those with the greatest leverage may be the ones with the least at risk. Partnership. This relationship entails exchange among equal working towards a mutual goal, and not that equal as applied here in not in terms of forms, structure or functions, but in terms of balance of respect. Since partnership builds upon the preceding levels, it assumes mutual responsibility and risk sharing. The self-management. This is the pinnacle of participatory efforts, where the stakeholders interact in learning processes, which optimize the well-being of all concerned. The levels of participation. The Biggs 1989 and Pretty 1994 had given the following levels in ascending order as follows. 1 is receiving information. The participants are informed or told what a project will do after it has been decided by others. Second, passive information giving. The participants can respond to questions and issues that interventionists deem relevant for making decisions about the program. Third, consultation. The participants are asked about their views and opinions and without restrictions, but the interventionists unilaterally decide what they will do with the information. Collaboration. The participants are partners in a program planning and jointly decide about the issues with the project staff. The self-mobilization. The participants initiate, work on and decide on the projects independently with interventionists in a supportive role only. The organization of people's participation. An advisory committee may be defined as a group of lay people organized from among the community to serve as an advisory group to the extension workers who are responsible for the development and execution of an extension program. The advisory committee, whatever its form and wherever its composition and size, is inevitable and must be a part of the larger social system. The structural form of the committee mostly depends on the kind and number of subparts and number of members. The experience of several decades in extension work suggests that the most effective pattern appears to be one with a central body and a number of subparts which include in their membership one or more from the central unit. Frequently, the subparts are standing committees like the central unit. Carter 1964 reported that the performance of advisory committee was more effective when the duties, obligations and powers or influences were widely distributed among the members. The people should represent rural, urban and civic, all age groups and all socio-economic levels. In briefs, the members of the committee should truly represent all relevant groups and interests. The committee's members should be well informed in extension aims and problems, the local community's affairs, and organizationally minded. In other words, a person who will make the contributions in committee meetings. The service of the members must be for a definite period in order to attract individuals and allow them to plan the productive use of their period of tenure. In this context, the ad hoc committees may be quite productive. The tenure of the committee should be neither too long nor too short to maintain morale and integration. The numbers in the advisory committee should not be larger than 12, otherwise they may tend towards conflict and factionalism among themselves. In addition to, there should also cohesiveness among the members of the advisory committee so that they may work, think and feel together about the problems and their solutions in the community. In the last, we can summarize that the primary responsibility for having a suitable organization for involving peoples in extension work rests with the extension workers. A suitable organization is one that meets the accepted criteria for a good organization and conforms to the policies of the state extension service. This fact leaves open the door for imaginative application by the agent of proven principles in establishing an organization and evolving efficient working procedures for it. A proper understanding of the individual in a group, the internal dynamics of the group and the external forces of the group can help to increasing group outputs. Although research has provided sufficient guidelines for organizing an effective advisory committee for people's participation, still there is no one known procedure that will guarantee the proper combination of the various elements into one effective organism. Thus, people's participation in the program planning process would give them a proprietary interest in seeking that an extension program which is carried out would lead to action for their development.